Have you ever felt the room shift beneath your feet and known, in that instant, that something wasn't right? I remember stepping into the ballroom that night, the soft glow of chandeliers spilling over the polished floor, the scent of jasmine and wine hanging thick in the air. Everyone smiled. Everyone danced. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the air was heavier than usual, that something unseen had pressed itself into the corners of the room. Chloe moved across the floor like she belonged to the music, her ivory dress brushing lightly against her skin, the lace catching the warm light. Liam followed, grinning, his hand firm yet gentle on her waist. They were perfect, the kind of couple whose happiness made you ache a little, because it seemed untouchable. The DJ, someone I'd never seen before, Marcus, set the record spinning, and the first waltz began. The strings floated over the floor, a gentle, elegant tide carrying everyone in a swirl of silk and laughter. I remember Chloe's fingers brushing Liam's shoulder. Her smile was effortless, yet there was a twitch, subtle, almost invisible, at the corner of her eye. Then it happened. Her step faltered. Just one small misstep, but it broke the rhythm. I thought she tripped, thought she would right herself, but she didn't. She went rigid, a sudden, unnatural stiffness, and her knees buckled. Liam's eyes widened, panic creeping in too late. I lunged forward instinctively, my hands brushing against the edge of her dress as she collapsed. Silence. Not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that presses down, thick and suffocating. The music continued, faint, mechanical, as if mocking the moment. Chloe lay there, lips parted, the sparkle of her earrings catching the chandelier light. The wine glass slid from the table, tipping over. Red pooled across the floor like ink in water, and for a second, I couldn't tell if it was wine or something far worse. Marcus froze behind his turntables. Liam's hand trembled as he reached for her, voice caught in his throat. Nobody moved. Not really. Not yet. I crouched beside her, heart hammering. Her pulse was strange. Weak, inconsistent, like a rhythm being forced from the shadows. And then I noticed it. A tiny smear on the rim of the wine glass, almost invisible unless you looked closely. A streak of red, not quite matching the wine we'd all been sipping. It wasn't her fault. She had done everything right. She had smiled. She had danced. And yet, in this room of celebration, a simple waltz had become the opening scene of something dark, deliberate, unthinkable. I don't know who else noticed. Maybe someone saw the shimmer of panic in Liam's eyes, or the hesitation in Marcus's hands, hovering over the controls. Maybe no one did. But that first moment, when Chloe went still, it didn't feel like an accident. And deep down, I knew. The first dance was never meant to end with applause. I watched Liam crouch over Chloe, his hands shaking. Her pulse flickered. There, then barely there, like a candle fighting wind. The wine glass lay tipped on the floor, a tiny smear at its rim catching the chandelier light. My stomach twisted. Something about that smear felt wrong. I picked up the glass. Cold, smooth. The red streak didn't mix with the wine. It was deeper, darker. My fingers trembled as I swiped it across a napkin. Marcus, still frozen behind the turntables, finally spoke. Did anyone else see that? No one answered. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Outside, a soft hum of traffic, of life, but inside, suspended. Liam whispered Chloe's name, each syllable raw, fragile. He bent closer, pressing a hand to her chest, desperate. I noticed the faintest movement in her eyes, a flutter that might have been life or a trick of the light. I glanced around. Guests were murmuring, clustered like shadows. Nobody approached. And then I saw it. A shimmer under the table, where a second wine glass had been knocked over. A faint residue, almost invisible, as if someone had been careful, calculating. Something wasn't accidental. Not the collapse, not the glass. And as I pressed Chloe's hand to my chest, hoping for warmth, I realized the first dance had ended. But the real story, the one hidden in whispers, reflections, and the tiniest clues, was only beginning. I could hear it before I saw it. A whisper, soft but deliberate, sliding across the polished floor. Someone had moved near the bandstand. The music hadn't stopped, yet the shadows stretched strangely, like they were alive. Liam's hands still trembled on Chloe's arm. Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't speak. I leaned closer, heart hammering, and noticed a faint stain trailing from her sleeve to the carpet. Not wine, something else. Something deliberate. DJ Marcus shifted nervously. I thought I heard her say a name, he muttered, voice barely audible. Before she fell, I froze. A name whispered in panic. A warning? Or a clue? The chandelier reflected off a polished silver tray. A glint caught my eye. Tiny droplets, forming a path toward the back exit. My stomach sank. Someone had been there, unseen, careful. Watching. Waiting. Liam pressed his forehead against Chloe's shoulder. It's okay, babe. It's okay. His voice cracked. Real fear, raw and uncontrolled. I realized then, the collapse wasn't random. The wine glass wasn't an accident. And the first dance had hidden more than movement, it had hidden intention. The ballroom, alive with celebration moments ago, now felt like a stage set for a quiet, calculated horror. The whispers grew louder, though no one moved. I traced Chloe's eyes wide, searching, panic barely contained. Then I saw it. A folded piece of paper tucked under the edge of the wine-stained tablecloth. My hands shook as I picked it up. Scribbled. Jagged letters spelled one word. Run. I turned to Liam. His face had drained of color. He didn't notice the note. Didn't see the trail. Didn't realize someone else was in the room. Watching. Calculating. Chloe shivered. Her fingers clutched at my arm. Something invisible pressed down on us. A presence. And the faint scent of almonds lingered. Sharp. Sweet. Unnatural. DJ Marcus swallowed hard. I think someone wanted her gone, he whispered. The guests laughed on the dance floor, oblivious. Music soared, but the room itself felt alive, anticipating what would come next. Every shadow, every reflection in the crystal chandeliers seemed deliberate. A warning we weren't ready to understand. And then Chloe gasped, almost silently, her eyes darting toward the back exit. That one glance, terrified, pleading, told me everything. The first dance was over, but the real danger had only just arrived. I couldn't stop staring at the shattered wine glass on the floor. Red liquid pooled around the base, glinting under the dim chandelier light. But it wasn't wine. Not really. Something metallic lingered in the air, coppery, sharp. Chloe trembled beside me, whispering my name, eyes wide. Liam knelt, pretending to help, but his hands were too steady, too deliberate. My stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed, he knew. I leaned closer to the shards. Tiny fingerprints smudged the rim. Someone had poured more than just wine. Someone had chosen the exact moment Chloe raised her glass for the first dance. DJ Marcus's voice trembled behind me. I saw him linger by the table, just before the toast. Everything clicked. The whispers, the trail, the note, it wasn't random. It was choreographed, precise, calculated. And we were in the middle of it. Chloe's hand found mine. She squeezed. Hard, fearful, silent. Her eyes pleaded one question I couldn't answer aloud. Who can we trust? The music continued. The laughter continued. But in that room, the real story had already begun. I felt it before I saw him. A shift in the air, heavy, deliberate. Liam's footsteps weren't accidental. They were measured, controlled, like someone who knew exactly how far to push fear before it breaks. Chloe pressed herself against me, whispering, He's coming closer. Her voice was barely audible, yet it pierced the room louder than the music. Liam's eyes met hers for a split second, cold and unreadable. Then he turned his attention to the wine glass. He bent slowly, almost reverently, as if studying a secret only he understood. I wanted to scream, to move, to warn her, but my body refused. My heart raced, every beat echoing in my ears. The room seemed to shrink, shadows stretching toward us like dark fingers. Chloe's grip tightened. We have to get out. Her words barely escaped, swallowed by the oppressive silence that had fallen over our corner of the ballroom. And then a faint clink. The glass. Liam didn't knock it over. He let it speak for him. Everything in that sound hit like ice. Deliberate, chilling, and final. We weren't dancing. We weren't celebrating. We were trapped in a carefully orchestrated nightmare. The music swelled, but I barely heard it. Chloe's breath faltered in my arms, her eyes glassy, pleading for an escape that wasn't there. Liam straightened, his shadow stretching across us like a curtain closing on the night. He whispered one sentence, low, deliberate. This was never about love. The words froze me. They weren't shouted. They weren't angry. They were calm, practiced, like a vow rewritten in poison. Chloe's grip loosened. Her ring slipped against my palm. And in that moment I understood the first dance had been staged. Every step, every smile, every toast, part of a performance designed to end right here. As her head fell against my shoulder, I looked into Liam's expressionless eyes and felt the truth pierce deeper than any blade. We hadn't witnessed an accident. We had witnessed a ritual. And the silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever known. If you want more chilling truths revealed, subscribe to the Veil of Secret, where the stories never leave you.